As the movie opens, we see a girl sprinting through the woods, closely chased by goons. She eventually reaches a pond and jumps in. The scene then transitions to a school located in Minneapolis, where students are performing music on stage. Then the school staff asks Alice to come up and perform. As Alice steps onto the stage, she notices her father in the audience, distracted by his phone, and her mother hasn't arrived yet. Upset by this, Alice leaves the stage without performing and runs away. On her way out, she pulls the fire alarm, causing chaos in the school. Later, the school principal meets with Alice's parents and informs them that Alice has been expelled for repeatedly causing disruptions. They also learn that Alice is nowhere to be found. During the conversation, Alice's father tells his wife that he plans to remarry a woman named Roshan and that they are getting divorced tomorrow. Alice's mother, Kat, is deeply hurt by this news. When she gets home, she finds out that Alice is there, having a party with her friends. When Alice's parents get home, they start scolding her for her actions. Just then, Alice's dad receives a call from his office and has to leave abruptly. Kat, already upset, continues to express her disappointment in Alice because she was expelled from school. Alice, feeling hurt, asks why Kat didn't come to see her performance. Kat replies that she was a bit busy. Hearing this, Alice becomes frustrated and storms off to her room. It's also revealed that Kat has lost her job, which is adding to her stress. While dealing with all this, Kat finds a letter from her mother inviting her to come to the village. Kat decides to take Alice and visit her mother, Delilah. In the village, Delilah tries to comfort Alice, explaining that she can stay there as long as she likes. Delilah shows Alice a decree from her grandfather that makes Alice feel welcomed and comfortable staying in the village, as long as she doesn't wander too far from the house. Near their house, there's a pond. In her room, Alice finds a pamphlet from her grandfather about boats, which brings back fond memories of him. The following morning, Kat's childhood friend Elliot arrives to visit her. Elliot, who is also facing a divorce, empathizes with Kat's situation. Meanwhile, Alice heads to school where she befriends some new classmates. During school, Elliot surprises the class by stepping in as their physics teacher. After the lesson, he pulls Alice aside and reassures her that she can come to him with any problems she might have. After school, Alice returns home only to discover that her parents are indeed proceeding with the divorce. Overwhelmed by the news, she dashes to the nearby pond and impulsively jumps in. Underwater, she hears unusual noises and suddenly sees a hand. When she touches it, she finds herself transported out of the water, holding a hand. Emerging from the pond, Alice is startled to realize the hand belongs to her mother, Kat, who appears much younger. Standing nearby is a teenage boy, Elliot, in his youth. Alice is also thrilled to see her grandfather for the first time. The group gathers for a meal, and Alice notices Kat's brother Jacob among them. After eating, Alice approaches Elliot to explain that she is Kat's daughter from the future, having traveled back in time, and urges him to believe her story. The next day, Alice convinces Elliot to accompany her to the pond. Together, they jump in and return to the present. When they arrive, Kat scolds Alice, fearing she had gone missing, just like Jacob had years ago. Jacob had disappeared during their childhood, and his whereabouts had never been uncovered, leaving a lasting scar on the family. Later, Alice heads to the archive area, determined to uncover the truth about her Uncle Jacob's mysterious disappearance. She also informs the present-day Elliot that she plans to visit her mother in the past. After sharing her intentions, she leaps into the pond and travels back in time. Meanwhile, Kat secures a job in the archive section. On the other hand, Alice frequently goes to the past and subsequent meetings with her maternal grandfather. These activities lead to a noticeable change in Alice's demeanor, arousing Kat's suspicions, especially since Alice's behavior had previously been troubling. As evening falls, Alice once again jumps into the pond, returning to the past. Upon her arrival, it becomes clear that she hasn't been there for 2 months. Elliot warns her that the pond might unpredictably send her to different timelines, and she needs to be cautious to avoid being late returning to the past. Alice then meets with Kat and apologizes for her long absence. The following day, Kat takes Alice to a beach party where Alice meets a boy named Nick. Alice immediately takes a liking to him. However, their time together is cut short when the police arrive, causing chaos among the partygoers. While others scatter, Alice stays close to Nick. Eventually, amidst the commotion, Kat and Elliot find them. That night, Alice stays at Kat's house. While they are talking before bed, Kat confides in Alice that she is going to work where she has met a man named Brendan, who she is starting to like. Unbeknownst to Alice at first, Brendan is her father. After this revelation, Alice returns to the present day. Back in the present, Kat notices that Alice seems unusually happy, which piques her curiosity. Deciding to find out why, Kat secretly follows Alice and is stunned to see her daughter also jumping into the pond. revealing that she too knows about the time-traveling secret. In an effort to save her daughter, Kat too jumps into the pond and arrives in the past. The future Kat is taken aback to see her younger self alongside Alice. As she approaches her old home, she spots her parents and her brother Jacob. The sight of her family together and well is overwhelming, and in her emotional turmoil, she accidentally drops a steel bucket. The noise alerts her father, who approaches to investigate. He asks who she is and what she wants, but a shocked and unprepared Kat flees the scene. Upon returning to the present, Kat breaks down in tears, deeply moved by having seen Jacob alive in the past. Meanwhile, Alice travels back to the past again and confides in Elliot that Brendan is her father and she had come to see his younger self. Elliot is visibly upset by this revelation, as he harbors secret feelings for Kat. Later, Kat decides to introduce Alice to Brendan in the past. Alice finds Brendan to be quite arrogant and full of attitude, which makes her internally question how this man could be her father. Despite her doubts, she remains silent for her mother's sake. Soon after, Alice, Kat, Nick, and Brendan plan to go to a movie. Brendan begins to buy tickets for everyone, but Nick interjects, offering free tickets and popcorn because the theater belongs to his parents. The future Kat overhears a conversation between Alice and Elliot, realizing that Elliot is aware of the time-traveling adventures. Back in the present, she confronts Elliot, asking if he knows that Alice has been traveling to the past. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Elliot acknowledges that he is aware and realizes that Kat herself has traveled back and discovered their secret. The next morning, Brendan visits Kat's house, taking a break from his routine to meet to Alice. After dropping Alice off at school, Kat finds a moment to speak with Elliot about the possibilities of changing the past since she has the ability to travel through time. However, Elliot cautions her against tampering with time, warning that it could have severe consequences. Kat, undeterred, ignores his advice and travels back to the past to observe Jacob. Once there, she conceals herself behind a tree and watches Jacob play with a friend in the forest. Unfortunately, Jacob hears a noise and, mistaking Kat for a witch or a demon, flees in terror. When Kat returns to the present, Alice takes her turn traveling to the past, where she finds that the younger version of Kat has invited Brendan over for dinner. While Kat and Brendan retire to their room, Alice informs them that she is getting late and must return home. Outside, Nick is waiting for Alice, and the two of them head out on a date. After spending some quality time together, she returned to their own timeline. Meanwhile, in the present, Kat and Elliot attend a local festival. Kat, dressed in a stunning red gown, catches Elliot's eye, and he can't help but admire her as they dance together at the town celebration. Their dance is interrupted when Brendan arrives and, seeing them together, feels a pang of jealousy. Kat confronts him, questioning why he should feel jealous when he is now living with Rachel. She reflects on her own feelings of betrayal when she learned of Brendan and Rachel's marriage, which ultimately led to their tumultuous argument and decision to divorce. Kat visits the archive section to gather research materials about Jacob, determined to use her knowledge of the past to prevent his mysterious disappearance. The next day, she approaches Elliot to share her findings and her plan to travel back in time to save Jacob. Initially, Elliot is hesitant to support her potentially dangerous venture into the past, but after Kat persistently pleads for his help, he reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, Alice informs Elliot that she must return to her own time and may not be back for a month or so. She implores him to promise to look after Jacob, who is at risk of going missing in the next few days. Moved by Alice's concern and determination, Elliot promises to do everything within his power to protect Jacob. In a subsequent scene, Kat and her mother, Delilah, visit the man who was with Jacob just before he vanished. The man recounts the haunting day at the edge of a rocky abyss where he and Jacob were playing. In a tragic turn of events, Jacob's doll accidentally fell into the abyss. Terrified by what had happened, the man ran away in panic, leaving Jacob behind, who insisted on retrieving his doll himself. It was then that Jacob disappeared. Overwhelmed with guilt, the man breaks down in tears, lamenting that if only he hadn't left, Jacob might still be alive today. Delilah, seeing the man's distress, comforts him, assuring him that it wasn't his fault and that what happened was beyond his control. Kat informs Elliot with unwavering determination that she is going back to the past to save Jacob, no matter the cost. Upon arriving in the past, Kat discovers that her younger self, along with her parents and Jacob, has gone to a carnival. Wasting no time, she borrows a bicycle and heads straight to the carnival. Meanwhile, Alice also travels to the past and finds Elliot, telling him that today is the crucial day when Jacob is going to disappear. Realizing the urgency, Elliot quickly grabs a bicycle, and the two rush to the carnival to keep a close watch on Jacob. At the carnival, Kat spots her younger self and Brendan taking Jacob to ride the giant Ferris wheel. She watches from a distance as they settle Jacob into a seat and then climb into their own. As the ride starts, Jacob's doll slips from his hand and falls to the ground below. Once the ride ends, Jacob immediately runs off to search for the doll. Both the younger Kat and Brendan follow follow him, concerned, but lose sight of him in the crowd. Future Kat begins to frantically search for Jacob as well, but cannot find him anywhere. Shortly after, Alice and Elliot arrive at the carnival and join the search. But despite their combined efforts, Jacob seems to have vanished. While searching, Future Kat spots Jacob's friend, who was with him at the time of his disappearance. She notices the boy holding Jacob's doll, snatching it from Jacob's hands moments earlier. Alice sees her mother in the distance and, confused, wonders if she is seeing things or if it's some kind of illusion. Desperate to find Jacob, Future Kat heads into the nearby forest. After a frantic search, she finally spots Jacob, sitting alone and clutching his doll. Relieved, she rushes over to him and introduces herself, explaining that she is Alice's mother. She assures him that everything is okay and gently guides him back to his house. Once there, she watches as Jacob safely enters the home. Believing her mission is complete, she returns to the present. Back in the present timeline, however, Kat is devastated to discover that Jacob is still missing. Despite her efforts to change the past, nothing has changed. Jacob's disappearance remains a mystery, leaving Kat grappling with frustration and heartbreak. Kat comes to the painful realization that her attempts to alter the past were futile. The events unfolded as they were meant to, unchanged. Overwhelmed by her inability to save Jacob, she seeks comfort in her mother's embrace, confessing that she struggles to forget Jacob and that despite her efforts, she cannot let go of the past. Later, Kat meets with Elliot and shares her experience. She tells him about seeing Jacob on the giant wheel and how his doll fell. She recounts following Jacob and his friend into the forest, finding Jacob and ensuring he got home safely. Yet despite her interventions, Jacob still went missing. Kat expresses a resigned acceptance that perhaps the past resists alteration, that it doesn't allow itself to be reshaped by those who revisit it. She admits to Elliot that she did everything within her power. At that moment, Alice returns from her own journey to the past and learns about her mother's attempts to change the outcome for Jacob. Alice, undeterred by her mother's failure, contemplates another attempt to save him. However, Kat approaches her, standing by the pond where so many of their temporal journeys had begun. She gently explains to Alice that revisiting the past is pointless because the events that are meant to occur will inevitably happen, regardless of their efforts to prevent them. But Alice, ignoring Kat's advice, returns to the past once more. This time, she finds the villagers searching the jungle for Jacob, their desperation growing as the hours pass. Alice quietly visits the house and sees her maternal grandparents, distraught and exhausted, having done everything in their power to locate Jacob. The family is heartbroken, and their efforts to find him have come to nothing. Alice takes one last, lingering look at her grandparents and her younger mother before deciding to return to the present. Back in the present timeline, Kat sits Alice down and gently explains that they must let go of the past and focus on the future. She tells Alice that Jacob is gone forever and that no amount of time traveling can bring him back. Kat urges her daughter to concentrate on her studies and embrace the life ahead of her. Later, Kat meets with Elliot and confides in him about her decision to move forward. Seeing how sad she is, Elliot decides to cheer her up. He takes her on a drive, playing old songs in his car, tunes they used to listen to together during their childhood. As they reminisce, Elliot opens up about his feelings for her. He confesses that he has loved her for years and admits that if Brendan hadn't entered her life, he would have been her husband by now. His heartfelt words touch Kat deeply, and for the first time in a long while, she feels a spark of happiness. Moved by Elliot's sincerity and their shared memories, Kat decides that she wants to spend the rest of her life with him. Together, they embrace the future, leaving behind the pain of the past. With this heartwarming moment, the time travel series comes to an end. Thank you for watching this journey unfold. If you enjoyed the series, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be back soon with another exciting story. Until then, take care and see you next time.